Welcome to the show, folks. Friday, and if you've made it this far, congratulations. The end of the week. Now, for the next half hour, we're going to be diving into some of the biggest stories that took over the news cycle this week. And trust me, it has been a crazy, crazy news week. You can follow me on Twitter at TheMaxBurns. You can follow Lincoln Square on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media and on Substack at Lincoln Square. As always, leave your comments during the show. We'll toss them up and talk about them and give you some attention. Leave comments after the show, too, so I can read them and feel bad about myself. We have a great, great show for you today. Joining us once again, the great DC journalist, author of the Just Ask the Question podcast, the great Brian Karem is back with us. Brian, how are you, man?
I'm hanging in there, brother. It's a Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't feel like a Friday, Brian. Like the number of things going crazy just in the last couple hours, it doesn't feel like a Friday.
I feel like I've aged a year in the last week, but it's a tough room. Hey, how you doing?
God, it is ballistic. And now, for those of you watching, I wonder if you can tell me what you think about this chart. This is a recent Financial Times story. U.S. workers who are functionally illiterate, meaning they can read, but they struggle to understand what they're reading, make the same amount of money per hour as the average British worker who went to school and can fully read. A stunning number here. Americans may not be able to read, but they're making decent money, and that's softening some of the blow of the collapse of the education system.
But is it?
Brian, you and I have talked about this a lot, how people are just, literacy is falling off a cliff. What does it tell you that even countries that are doing better than us, you're still not making as much as the most illiterate American is?
Well, it tells me what George Carlin once said. They only want you smart enough to operate the machinery. And it also tells me that maybe half the people watching this probably can't read the chart. But that's another issue entirely. And it also depends on how comparing a dollar here to a dollar there, what's the spending and purchasing power here versus in Britain and elsewhere. So it's a wonderful comparison to show how even stupid people in the United States can make money. But I think the nuance involved in it, we could spend hours talking about that.
Yeah. I wonder how much longer that's going to be true with AI. I mean, those people on the left side of the scale are the ones that AI is coming for first. It's going to be a mess.
They're going to get them. I know someone who in Texas. My son lives in Texas, and he called I think it was a repairman for his refrigerator. And the guy showed up and he said, "So can you fix it or not?" And he goes, "Well, I got to ask my manager." His manager was AI.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see AI fix a sink, though. Now, that chart is actually not one of our top stories for the week, but we're going to do things a little differently this week. There is so much news out there that we've broken it down into the three big themes for the week. And the first one, by a mile, has to be the GOP in the doghouse, especially in the White House. It was a tough week for the Fox News hosts who are running the country. You had Pete Hegseth getting screamed at Camp David by Donald Trump because the U.S. is out of missiles. And yeah, you heard that right. The United States is almost out of missiles after we threw all of them at Iran. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro also on the verge of getting fired after the case against the Olympian who she accused of attacking the reflecting pool was dismissed. She's also lost a slew of cases trying to prosecute Donald Trump's political enemies. And you have Todd Blanche, the nominee for Attorney General, who looks like he may just barely squeak by after Bill Cassidy in Louisiana this morning said that he was packing up his spine and is going to vote for Blanche, because if he doesn't vote for Blanche, the next nominee may be worse. Brian, doesn't that apply to basically any nominee Trump could nominate at this point?
Well, let's start at the top. All right, what was the first one? Hegseth.
Hegseth.
And out of missiles, right? We're out of missiles. The people that'll be happiest about that are the defense contractors, because they're going to make a boatload of money, rearming the United States. It tells you that Pete Hegseth is cosplaying his job as, he's got a mirror, a full-length mirror he preens in front of at the Pentagon. And that's what he's all about. He has no clue what he's doing. I have insiders inside the Department of Defense and the DOD and Pentagon who say, "Man, we're ducking and covering. We're just trying to stay out of the way and survive this moron." everyone who's challenged him, of course, has left the ranks of generals in the Pentagon. So
or been thrown out the window.
Yeah, and then you got Jeanine Pirro, and that particular case, to me, it seems trivial. Just the smallest thing, right? Just the reflecting pool, the Lincoln reflecting pool, couple, $10-15 million wasted, but that story is, in a nutshell, everything wrong with Donald Trump. First of all, he points to that particular piece of that you're showing there. That bothers me.
The 8647 on the National Mall. Yeah,
that has nothing to do with the case that guy was charged for. The canoeist, David Hearn, it's like here's evidence in the Manson trial. The Donner Party disappeared. It makes no fucking sense. So Pirro did it backwards. She indicted first, and then she investigated. And she indicted and went on and lied with Donald Trump, saying they had definitive proof that it happened. They have the evidence. Well, they didn't have any evidence. They had one person from the department, and then they blamed it on the Department of the Interior. Well, guess what? If you're an investigator and somebody tells you something, you investigate it to the ground. You simply don't take their word for it. And they did. So it shows slipshod and shoddy craftsmanship by her. It shows that Donald Trump does, even in the smallest instance, cares very little about facts, only about what he wants. And there are people who were listening to that particular exchange in the Oval Office who told me that, and he may have yelled at Pete Hegseth, but the walls were rattling when he was yelling at Jeanine Pirro, because she and other, they've got to worry about disbarment. She's in a long line of people who have worked for or formerly worked for Donald Trump that are lawyers that will be disbarred because of their actions. And that includes many of the prosecutors that side with her. You've destroyed the credibility of the Department of Justice. You've destroyed the credibility of the Pentagon. Donald Trump has done nothing but he's like, running around with his chicken with his head cut off and cutting off other heads of other chickens. It's disgusting to have to watch.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you've heard from people in the Pentagon, in the White House, about Hegseth and Pirro. I'm curious what it says to you as a journalist that so many people are now willing to talk to reporters about this on background. It seems like they're looking to protect themselves and put distance between themselves and this chaos. But what other things have you heard from this mad week in Washington?
Well, first of all, it shows me they have no huevos. They have no, because everyone in D.C. wants to talk. All you got to do is take them out to the Capitol Bar and grill after hours, have a drink with them. Somebody's going to talk because everybody wants to feel important. They're privately very brave. And that tells you that they know that they're screwed. They're publicly they still show fealty to Donald Trump because they don't want to get screwed by him. So they're between a rock and a hard place. And what I've heard this week is the wheels have fallen off the wagon. But we hear that often. But what we're hearing now is that the wheels have fallen off the wagon, and the midterms are definitely in trouble for Donald and the GOP. He claims he doesn't care. Well, that's a good thing, because he's going to get it handed to him. And with the jobs report that just came out, and a reminder for everyone, this jobs report came out showing 23,000 fewer
23,000 lost, and downward revisions for the last couple of months too.
And here's the thing about it. If you remember, when Donald Trump came into office, he fired everyone who gave him those numbers because he didn't like the numbers he got. So these are people, they're giving him numbers that are his people. So how much worse is it really? So you combine all that together, and as one of my sources in the White House who will still talk to me said earlier this week, he said, Brian, it's only going to get worse.
And it does seem like it is only getting worse. I mean, the second big theme of the week, the GOP is in free fall across the board. I mean, it's bad news for Republicans even outside the White House, even if you're not Jeanine Pirro, who's indicting people over nothing. As you mentioned, that new jobs number came out, 23,000 jobs lost in July, sharp downward revisions for the last couple of months as well. The economy now down to 1.5% growth, the slowest in years. Trump scraping 33% approval, the lowest of his presidency. And now a CNN poll shows that half of Republican voters say they no longer trust Trump and Republicans to fix the economy. But Donald Trump today said that he's not worried about this, that voters are mad at Republicans, not at Donald Trump, but that those mad voters are going to still vote Republican in November because they're going to be voting for their love of him. Brian, this is why Republicans on the Hill are terrified. Donald Trump does not seem to get how bad his situation is.
Donald Trump doesn't seem to get that very few people actually love him, if anyone. And he's counting on those. You notice, as a president, here's something I haven't seen in 40 years of covering, the presidency. The rallies. Donald Trump doesn't step out and look. He doesn't do press conferences, although they call them press conferences. What he does is press availability for in-house pool only. I'll remind everyone, all of those of us who are not in the pool can barely get in. Some of us can't even get into the building for press briefings, which they don't have much of anymore. The only people seeing Donald Trump, other than at rallies, are the travel or local pool. Same 15 reporters. He has a comfort level with them. He's happy with that. He doesn't do chopper talk anymore. He doesn't speak to reporters outside of the pool in the briefing room or have full-blown news conferences. None of that, because he's afraid. And then the other part that you have to really take a look at in regards to your point is that Donald Trump thinks that he's loved because everything is staged for him. He shows up at these rallies. These are hand-picked crowds, usually white, always ready to boo the things that they think they should boo. The other day, he showed up in Las Vegas, and the governor of Nevada showed up to give a moment of silence to a fallen police officer whose last name his first name was Austin, but his last name sounded Arabic. And so immediately they started booing him. And they go, no, we're not booing him. He felt it's just conditioned response. It's like Pavlov's dog. Those people come out, they boo, they cheer. And because of that, Donald Trump thinks he's loved and that everything else is made up. And he's surrounded by morons who constantly tell him that he's loved. No, they love you, Mr. President. No, they love you, Mr. President. Now, I know some of the people who are the last people in that room, Susie Wiles, and of course, our buddy Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller tells Donald Trump that he's loved because Stephen Miller is getting what he wants out of Donald Trump. The racism, the narcissism, the rage towards immigrants and towards those who have less, that's all Stephen Miller. And as long as he gets what he wants, he'll continue to tell Donald Trump that he's well loved. And they're both going to hell together.
But that's not playing well with actual people. I mean, Trump is behaving like he's 10 points up in the polls, but then he goes to Michigan and he tells GM auto workers who have had thousands of layoffs that they should be thanking him for how well the auto industry is going. And then we have a clip just today here, I think, of Donald Trump talking about gas prices and how it's actually, he's concerned they're getting too low. Let's play that clip.
Concerned about the economy and rising costs, the president dismissing that.
The economy is the greatest economy we've ever had by far. The economy aren't good. They're fake polls, just like fake writers.
The president again promising that as soon as the war ends, prices would go down on oil and gas. Then moments later saying this.
It's dropping, and we may have to send it up again. We may have to, you know what?
We may have to send gas prices up again. I mean, Trump also was talking about data centers and how he thinks Americans should love them because they're beautiful. It's almost like he's picking issues that voters hate him for and then rubbing it in their face, Brian.
Well, and you forgot the part of the speech. If you'll listen to these rallies and these speeches, Donald Trump will take commercial breaks. He'll weave them into his narrative. But he'll go, and by the way, buy a Dell computer because they're really great. They're better. No one does a better computer. So he takes commercial breaks. He ought to put on a NASCAR suit and just display all of his corporate sponsorship like, race car drivers do. I'm sure if it were a white jumpsuit with gold piping and epaulets, he'd actually do it. But Donald Trump is nothing if not a liar, nothing if not completely at odds with it. Look, Max, he's the guy who came out, what was it, last week or the week before, and said he doesn't want affordable housing. He wants housing prices to go up so that those who own homes, the rich, can get richer. Never mind the poor who want to buy a home, the American dream. He doesn't care about that. He cares about himself and making money. And he has cheered insider trading. He's actually cheered it, and he engages in it. He's made more stock trades as president than every other president combined, which was zero. And Donald Trump has traded in stock, thousands of times as president?
Yeah.
So where is there's nothing in Donald Trump's policy that there isn't a dollar sign for him, not for you, not for me, but for him.
Well, this is something I wanted to ask you more about because, right, we know voters are furious about affordability, gas prices, the cost of groceries. Donald Trump says that's all a myth, right? Affordability is a hoax. He loves the inflation. But congressional Republicans who actually have to run for re-election, they could pass legislation that actually addresses prices and jobs in the economy, but they're not doing much of anything. I mean, why aren't Republicans acting to fix their bad numbers?
Well, there's two schools of thought in that. One is they've given up. Well, actually, there may be three. The second is that Donald Trump has convinced them that he's got the election fixed for the fall and not to worry. And three, they are worried but can't get enough people together to pass votes that would help the American people without threatening the loss, and this is probably more likely the case, without threatening the loss of the voters who support Donald Trump. Because remember, most of what's left of the Republican Party are those who support Donald Trump. Who got in? I mean, they created the Republicans created their own problems in Texas by dumping Cornyn and bringing out, the pedophile friend, Ken Paxton. So James Tallarico, a young Democrat who, by the way, has one of the worst communication staffs I've ever seen, he's got a real chance at winning because, everything is set up right for him. But I mean, Tallarico running against a real Republican would have zero chance. I mean, I show up at one of their press briefings. They didn't know where to put a microphone. They didn't know where to put the light. They didn't know where to put their candidate or how to set it up. So the Republicans are doing it to themselves. And if the Democrats can just keep from eating their own, they got a real shot here. So the real problem with that Republican Party is because they are so subservient to Donald Trump. Honestly, I think that's the real reason why they're not doing anything, because they're in with him all the way to the bitter end. And somewhere in the back of their, empty heads where that brainworm rattles that was given to them by RFK Jr., they have the belief that somehow they can fix it and they'll stay in office this fall.
And Trump protects them too, or at least he tries to. But we're seeing sort of the limits of this start to emerge. This week, Andy Ogles in Tennessee, who was endorsed by Trump, and Trump went all out to secure his reelection, defeated. We have Max Miller, and John Welch in the comments actually notes Max Miller, who represents Wellington, Ohio, is under fire to resign. Trump and some Republicans have said, no, let's not rush to judgment on this man who is credibly accused of beating his wife, holding a gun to her head, so much so that Emily Moreno's father, Bernie Moreno, the Republican senator in Ohio, has come out and called on Miller to resign for his actions. Yet the White House is silent. They're defending him, hoping because he's a loyalist that he can weather this. I mean, what are you hearing from Republicans on the Hill about Max Miller and how this affects the image people have of Republicans when they have to go vote for him?
Well, to put it into how could I put it succinctly? They all wish they were Mitch McConnell. Disappear, still keep their job.
Wherever he may be.
Wherever he may be, he's still got his job. John Welch, Brian is an account. I got a comment on that. 69, brother. I have 69 jumps. I haven't jumped in a while, but that's it was I did it on my 16th birthday, Max. I got my driver's license, jumped out of an airplane, and got my pilot's license all in the same day. So that was my celebrating my 16th.
Busy day for you. It feels like Republicans are jumping out of a plane without a chute. We have another comment here from Get on the Bus Gus. Does he warn his flock that he didn't care about them? He just wanted their votes. He's proving it right now, but they're in denial. But I'm not sure how in denial they still are, because we just saw, for the first time now, a majority of Republicans say that they view Trump's handling of the economy unfavorably. Over a third of MAGA Republican voters who voted for Trump in 2024 now say they're unhappy with him and want change. I mean, this is a huge shift for Republicans.
Well, those who are left adoring Donald Trump are the true believers. And there is a core of people that you will never be able to convince Donald Trump has done anything wrong, no matter how bad it is. And the reason why is because it's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong when they doubled down so often on this guy, but he has cleaved away most of the people. I mean, he lost Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was one of his biggest supporters. There are people who he said, no forever wars. We're stuck in a forever war. He said he would release all the Epstein files. He hasn't released all the Epstein files. He said things would get cheaper immediately. They didn't. They got more expensive. He said he would end the war in Ukraine on day one. That hasn't happened. So, you add up everything that he claimed he would do and what he's actually done. And, look, I will say that most of the MAGA people I know are not stupid people per se. They just fell into this trap. And when they woke up from it and they said, holy shit, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what anyone wanted. Then there were other people going, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. I don't want any immigrants in this country. I'm a racist. Those people are still with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But, my brother-in-law from Missouri, who was just a farmer and wanted to make a living, wants the government mostly to leave him alone, except taking care of the roads and schools and healthcare. Those people like him are upset because they're seeing that the things that they thought they took for granted that the government would do for them, the federal government, they aren't doing. And then you have RFK Jr., who's, he has destroyed healthcare and nobody seems to care in the office of the presidency. So.
And speaking of parties that seem to be out of touch and angry voters and what we do about a mess, our third big story is the Democrats have walked into another primary headache season. If you thought Democrats would be using the GOP's collapse to their advantage, well, you don't know Democrats. We had progressive Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed, his nail-biting win in Michigan, where he beat Haley Stevens, who was Chuck Schumer's pick and the consensus Democratic establishment pick. Now Democratic centrist groups are saying they're going to spend millions of dollars opposing Syed, even if that means a Republican picks up the Senate seat that was vacated by outgoing Senator Gary Peters. The New York Times now says Democrats are, quote, ready for war with the left flank, even though voters say that they agree with most of the policies that these progressive candidates they've nominated want. Chuck Schumer's also in big trouble. 6 of the candidates who are now running for Senate say that they wouldn't support him as leader if they're elected. Brian, it seems like Democrats now have turned their fire directly on themselves for reasons I can't understand. What's your take? What are you hearing?
Democrats, however low the Republicans go, the Democrats have trouble crawling over the bar. And if you want to tell me how you are so damn superior to the Republicans, Democrats, how is it you lost to Donald Trump twice? How pathetic are you that you can't defeat someone who is the most pathetic person to ever be elected as president? Not only the most pathetic, but the most corrupt, the lyingest. The Democrats should, instead of preaching to us what is right, they should put people in office. I'm tired of the virtue signaling. I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of the left going after the right going after the left, and the middle going after both, while both go after the middle. The Democrats are the big tent party left in the United States, supposedly, and they will snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory every chance they get. And it's just, look, you run how your district, if you're a Democrat, you do it the way Tip O'Neill did it. When Tip O'Neill was tasked by the Democrats to win back the House, what did he do? And this was back in the 60s, I believe it was. And they put him on the road. He was just an up-and-coming congressman himself at the time. But he said, look, I didn't go to him and go, who's the best Democrat? I said, who's the most popular guy in this district? We'll stake you. Yeah. And you could win. And so they won back, and they built a coalition of people, some who were conservative, some who were moderate, and some who were liberal. But
Yeah.
this is what you're seeing is, it's Newton's law, third law, I believe, applied to politics. For every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. You've got the far
But it
right.
does seem like Democrats are afraid of popularity, right? Like it's not just that Chuck Schumer's chosen and funded candidates who have lost, but that when they lose, Democratic leaders and the DSCC and these organizations in Washington say, we're not going to live and let live and accept that we were wrong. We're going to try and destroy El Sayed and these progressive candidates. We would rather have a Republican win than a progressive. And that to me just seems crazy.
Especially if you look at who the Republicans are. None of them are going to be anything but pro-Trump. Really? That's what the Bernie Bros did after they lost to Hillary. They were going to, and that's why Trump won in 2016. No, we'd rather be for him than her. I'm going, well, you're not a Democrat then. I was at that Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, and I came away I knew the day after that convention that Clinton was going to lose because of what the Bernie Bros said and the attitude they had. And so if you want to keep losing, Democrats, go ahead. This is the perfect path to destruction. Continue on it, please, if you secretly love the Republicans and what Donald Trump has done to this country. If you're a Democrat, Fred Wellman, 2nd District, Missouri, great guy. He says, look, I am a Missouri Democrat. The DCCC didn't put much money into him, and he still won. And the reason why is because he listened to people in his district. That's how you win. So, Mamdani is great in New York City. He doesn't fly in West Virginia. All right. So Michigan, this guy won, back him.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what you need to do is win first, have your arguments later. Try it. Just try it once, Democrats. Just once. Pull your head out of your butt and win a race, and then you can argue about what it is that we're so virtuous about. It drives me absolutely insane because if you can't look at what Trump is and just say, look, we just need someone better than that. Someone who will recognize and respect the Constitution. Let's start with that because that's how the country was built. Don't tell me you want to destroy the Senate. Just tell me you want to get elected and you're gonna govern for everyone, even those who voted against you.
And the amount of bad blood this has created, though, worries me because now Michigan voters, Michigan Democrats, now have told pollsters that they view the National Democratic Party even less favorably than they did before. It's at record lows. They say they do not trust the DNC, that they feel like the DNC meddled in this race. There were a couple weeks where every negative El Sayed ad on TV was funded by a Democrat. I mean, Republicans got to coast on us eating our own. How do you even start to repair that kind of lack of trust?
Well, I think you do what Donald Trump should have done a long time ago. Look in the mirror. Democrats, my plea to you as an independent observer of the political nature, and I'm not going to tell you how I voted because that's up to me. I have I cast a private ballot and I want to keep it that way. But I will say I am probably harder on those that I like than those that I don't like, and I'm pretty hard on those I don't like. Just ask Donald. So, and I can't stand him. But the point being is that at some point in time, wake up, get involved, grow a set, and be an adult. Not everybody's going to agree with you, but we should all at least agree on the basics, the Constitution.
And it really says something. I think if Democrats had won in 2024 and then had picked up seats in the House and Senate, I mean, having Chuck Schumer come into Maine and Michigan and all these states and say, we know better than you who you should support. Don't support who you want. Then you'd be inclined to listen. But now you have a party that hasn't proven the establishment candidates can win. And you expect voters to come and support you and abandon people who are talking about issues that matter to them.
Yep.
Like you said, candidate quality is everything. Voters care about their candidate understanding what they're facing.
Yes. Well, that said, Max, I got a cruise, brother.
Absolutely. Brian, it has been fantastic having you. Tell our listeners and our viewers how they can find more of you.
Well, wherever fine podcasts are sold, the name of the book is called it's called Free the Press. The podcast is Just Ask the Question. And of course, every week in Salon and Raw America. So you can catch me anywhere, brother.
Brian, we appreciate it. We know you got to fly, but thank you so much. And with that last big story, we've reached the end of the week. I'm your host, Max Burns. You can follow me, as always, on Twitter at @TheMaxBurns. Follow us on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media, on Substack at Lincoln Square. And let me know what you thought of the show. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have had Brian Karem on. He has to run. He has 1,000 good fights to fight in the name of the Republic. But all right, friends, that's it for us. You can find even more videos on YouTube, so go check them out. I'll see you right back here next Friday at noon. We'll dive right back into the political circus. Stay safe out there.